Talk sense and sorcery, specifically in 1692 Salem. The vastly oversimplified synopsis of the Salem Witch Trials is that, beginning with the accusations of a group of teenage girls, 150 people were accused of witchcraft and 25 were hanged. The groundwork for this hysteria was laid by two men, Increase Mather and his son Cotton Mather. Increase was the president of Harvard and wrote a book 6 years before the witch hunt called Remarkable Providences, and the book was basically a collection of stories and practices all related to witchcraft and the work of the devil. His son Cotton Mather took this to the extreme. In Boston, 1688, he was called to help the Goodwin family, who had children that accused their Catholic laundry lady of witchcraft. Thanks to Mather's help in what he called spectral evidence, which is essentially that visions can be used as evidence in trial, thanks to that, Goodwife Anne Glover was hanged as a witch. This brings us to the book he wrote on the subject in 1689, modeled after his father's book and called Memorable Providences. In it, he wrote, "Behold, sinners, behold and wonder, lest you perish. The very devils are walking about our streets with lengthened chains, making a dreadful noise in our ears, and brimstone, even without a metaphor, is making a hellish and horrid stench in our nostrils." So first, this is one of the places where the idea of demons and devils and witches and the smell of sulfur comes into play, at least in modern America. All right, so the people in Salem had read this book and were like, oh, our teenage daughters are also acting very weird and hysterical. Let's bring this guy in to drive out the witches. So far we've got sulfur, let's examine the other witch scent. Tituba, the enslaved woman most often associated with the Salem witch trials, was asked to bake a witch's cake by a neighbor in Salem. These cakes could tell you if witchcraft was afoot, and called for the urine of the girls that were bewitched into a rye cake, then fed to their dog. The urine was because they believed that witch's essence was left behind in urine, and fed to the dog because if the dog had the same reaction as the patient, then witchcraft. I know, doesn't make any sense. All right, sulfur and urine so far. Now let's talk about protection charm. So Puritans, who were so militantly anti-witchcraft, pretty much cast their own spells. Like, the Venn diagram between a witch's spell and the rituals they were doing to protect themselves was, in fact, a circle. They would hang bay and horseshoes over their doors and also carve out symbols and angels. They would also boil the urine of the afflicted person because they believed that that would basically boil the witch. All right, sulfur, urine, and bay leaves, if we're going to make a true Salem witch scent, that's it. However, interestingly, the metaphor for sin at the time was devil's breath, and how you could protect yourself from that was by wearing a concoction of ambergris, musk, and civet. And if that sounds familiar to you, that's because I've talked about this at length in my videos on tutors and perfumes. The Puritans wouldn't have used those, though, because they thought perfume too great a luxury and too vain. Their hygiene was all about fresh and clean linen. Diaz and Durga announced their limited edition Salem Gothic perfume, and let me tell you, I ran to the website to get it. It's got notes of amber, sandalwood, lichen, witch hazel, and violet. Love the packaging on this. It's really beautiful. And my first impression when I tried this on was kind of a mossy grape soda. I think that's probably from the violet note. I get very purple vibes from it, which is funny because the marketing says Salem Gothic is a perfume for all the purple-haired freaks who hang out in cemeteries and haunted shipyards. I really enjoy the scent. I'll be wearing it for the rest of the fall. Actually very much reminds me of my Unhallowed Art perfume, probably because of the violet note. Hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned for more scents and sorcery.